Hi, welcome to Project Management tutorial from Simply Learn. I am Chandra MR, a professional consultant and coach in best practices related to project management and IT service management. Today, as part of this tutorial, we are going to learn the basic understanding about the project management and the required knowledge for a project manager to become successful in managing projects. So as part of this tutorial, we are going to look at what is project management, what is project, components of project management, project life cycle, key focus areas in project management, job roles in project management, and project management certifications. So what is project management? Now, as defined in PMI's PMBOK, project management is application of knowledge, skills, tools and techniques to project activities to meet project requirements. So every project will have an objective to accomplish. Similarly, the objective of project management is to make the final deliverables in a finite time and budget. This involves having clear understanding about the deliverables of the project, required resources for the project, resource in terms of human resources, technical resources, financial resources, etc. Project manager should have a full picture of those aspects. We can call it as constraints or aspects, and manage those throughout the project life cycle, for which a project manager should have a full view about a project and what is that this project has to accomplish. That objective should be clear. So as part of project management, the 6 constraints which project manager should look at are scope, time, quality, cost, risk and resources. So each of these areas has very important role to play in project management. The clarity in scope, the clarity in terms of schedule within which the project has to be delivered, the cost, what it incurs to that particular project. Once it is finalized, one cannot vary, one cannot change without any proper approvals. Similar to that, we have quality management, which has to ensure the scope, the specifications, what are defined, project output will be accordingly achieved. Risk, every project is taken up for a specific reason by organization. So organization should assess the risk associated with the project, and similarly as project progresses, various different risks has to be identified, like risk related to project management, risk related to technology area, risk related to resources, risk related to financial things. So broadly, risk management plays a very important role. So there will be something called contingency reserve kept for a identified risk above the cost what is estimated for various deliverables from the project. So every project require resources. Resources may be in terms of human resources, financial resources, technology resources, environmental resources. So all these resources are used to produce the output of the project. So these resources has to be managed with the sufficient optimization and standardizations required. Now let us understand the definition of a project. So what is a project? PMI defines a project as a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service or result. The temporary nature of a project indicates that a project has a definite beginning and end. So when I say product, unique product, it means every output, it may be similar products you are producing with the same features and functionality, but the output of every project is unique because it is unique in terms of all the 6 constraints what we just discussed now. Now when I say product, it is very easy for us to visualize. It may be a desktop, it may be a laptop, it may be a car, it may be a machine, etc. But how do I visualize a service? Now project's output is a service. Now it's about building a capability. A project, through a project, a capability can be built to ensure services can be provided. That's what the output of project is, service. For example, if I think about a taxi services, for providing a taxi services, I need a mobile app, I need taxi, I need a server, I need a data center. So all these are various different products and services. Here service example can be internet service. So combination of all these services and products builds the capability for an organizations who can provide the taxi services. So building that capability, we say it is an output of a particular project which is called service. Similarly, results can be improvement of something, improvement in customer satisfaction, increase in some specific objectives or specific results needs to be achieved in performance perspective. So output of every project will be unique product or a service or a result. This we need to clearly understand. So when we say there is a definite beginning and end, every project starts at a certain point in time and ends at certain point in time. So it has a definite beginning and end. That is the reason it is temporary in nature. It is not an ongoing business activity, right? So every project will have a life cycle, a beginning and end. So when it starts till end, until the result or a service or a product which comes as an output of a project life cycle is not ended. So interestingly, in a product life cycle or in a service life cycle, you come across many project life cycles. So one project life cycle means one project is initiated to introduce a product or services. Next project or initiated would be to enhance the capability of a service or a product. Next project initiated after some time is to optimize something. Similarly, at the end of the product life cycle, project is initiated to retire that product or services. So in a given product life cycle, there may be multiple project life cycle. So what is involved in the project life cycle? It involves 5 areas, 5 groups we can call it as. So initiation, planning, execution, monitoring, and closure. So when I say initiation, it's all about understanding what is project, giving the basic understanding of the project, collating the details, and having key stakeholders identified. Once that is done, one will move towards planning. So here in the initiation, it is very clearly one has to understand is project is worthwhile of doing. So one has to check the feasibility, one has to measure that particular investment is making sense, and then confirm, yes, it makes sense to invest. Now next, planning. As we have a basic understanding of, yes, this project has to be done, and a discussion with the key stakeholders have happened, now that moves towards planning. Now in planning, one will understand the project in entirety. If it is a waterfall approach, one has to have a clear articulation of entire project, a comprehensive details, holistic approach. Now if you're going in a project in a agile way of approach, now in this planning you may have a big skeleton. As you go in each of the iteration, you may go deep dive into detailed planning if it is an agile approach. So planning provides you the clear insight towards what needs to be done in this project, how it has to be done, and what are the results which can be achieved out of that particular project. So this involves making that a clear blueprint of an project objectives, what we are supposed to achieve. So this will become a reference point throughout the project life cycle. Then execution. As you have a blueprint of the project, as the direction of that project is set, detailing of the project has been made, one will go ahead and execute the project. Execute in the sense implementation, acquiring resources and implementing it. So execution phase involves the allocation of resources and making the deliverables as required. You acquire resources, you configure a resource, you ensure right resources are acquired. If it is human resource, one has to educate that human resource with the project required knowledge or details, or one has to provide that assignment in such a way that skills of that individuals, what they should have is acquired by those individuals so that deliverables can happen, and they needs to be managed. The entire team needs to be managed. For that, a clear structure has to be created. Similarly, when you do technology resource perspective, those components has to be tested, configured, then integrated, again tested for and check the performances. So collective action of this results in a deliverable during the execution. So as the deliverables are happening in the execution, it is quite obvious project manager has to monitor, review, control that particular deliverable, and also the processes, tools, resources used during the project, even those needs to be monitored so that they are complying to the defined processes. So during monitoring, there may be a deviation one can found. During monitoring, there may be the project is running the way it is required. So in this monitoring phase, it involves an action from project manager to monitor and control the work of the project. So comparing with the blueprint of plan, what is accomplished, what is created during the planning phase of this project, and as the execution happens, monitoring and control is monitoring it and checking is that activities what is being done is according to the plan or not. Similarly, the deliverables which comes as an output of a project are tested thoroughly, whether those have a specific features and functionality and are they functioning the way it is required. Now project has to be delivered to the scope what is defined. It should not go beyond that or below that. Similarly, the schedule what is made for the project, within that schedule project deliverables needs to be accomplished within the cost what is budgeted for the project. So during the project, project manager may find there are certain deviations which are occurred, there are additional challenges which has come in. So for this reason, one has to ensure continued monitoring as the execution happens and identify those deviation and ensure whenever there is a deviation there is a correction. Whenever there is an additional things coming in, that needs to be considered carefully whether that need to be involved as part of this deliverable or should be taken it separately. So this requires a lot of conversation with all the stakeholders of the project during the entire project life cycle, especially during planning, execution, monitoring and control, since they are not the one which is happening in sequence. So planning can also come back again where there is something which you may require to modify. So you may require to have a change in the blueprint itself by adding that new change which is coming in. So you go back to planning. So planning, execution, monitoring and control are going hand in hand so that project deliverables are happening as needed. Similarly, all the process, work instructions, all those templates what is given are used. One is complying to those requirement. It is very important, and project is done within the scope, schedule and time and the quality metrics defined. Then as the completion of the project happens, as the monitoring and control says, yes, deliverable has happened according to the requirement, then the project moves to the closure. The closure may be closure of a specific project phase, a milestone deliverable or a phasal deliverable, or it can be a deliverable at the end of the project, which is the ultimate deliverable. So processes in closing has to be triggered whenever there is an end of the phase, whenever there is a deliverable to conclude, and also at the end of the project to conclude the entire project. So during the closure, one has to ensure capturing all the details in terms of what is accomplished against what is defined, what went wrong, what went well, what is the learning one has to take to the next level or to next phase or to the next project. And at the same time, a sign off has to be obtained formally and everything should be summarized and have a good handshake with the project stakeholder, mainly a business or customer. And also disseminating of team means you will dismantle the entire team and send them back to their specific units or specialization, and they may get assigned to new project, or if it is a functional they can go back to their functions to do their functional activities. So that was about entire project life cycle, what happens. Now while doing this, I mentioned there are 6 constraints, that is scope, schedule, cost, quality, risk and resources. So keeping these in mind, one has to ensure project is successful in all aspects. So to become successful, there are a few key areas which has to be looked at. So first 6 key areas are scope, schedule, cost, quality, resources and stakeholders. Now let us look at the scope. What does scope means? Scope is about what needs to be delivered. What is in scope? What is out of the scope? So this refers to all those deliverable scope, all those activity scope. Basically we speak about 2 things. One is product scope and project scope. Product scope is all about ensuring the features, functionality of products are well defined and understood and signed off. And while delivering that product, that is tested against those defined features and functionalities. Whereas project scope focus on all the activities needs to be done, all those templates which has to be used, all the process which has to be complied with, all that skills which is required to be applied. So it is going as defined. So by doing this activities which is defined as part of project scope, the result, the deliverable will come out, which will be in line with the deliverables, features and functionality, which is defined as part of product scope. It is very important to ensure entire projects happens within this particular scope. There should not be any deviations from this. Schedule perspective, for that specifications what we have defined for a product and project. So these needs to be done in a specific point in time, means in a specific schedule. There will be start time, end time, right? So one has to plan how long a project would take and what are the deliverables should happen in what sequence, what activities are required to accomplish this. So all these needs to be understood. So while performing the schedule management, one has to look at a specific deliverable at a specific point in time by applying a specific set of activities required. So this will tell you the duration of the project. This will provide you the sequence of project. This will also help you to understand the dependency between one task to another task. This will also help you to understand how the deliverables happening in what sequence, which helps in prioritizing your deliverables. Third is cost. So as we know, to do any project, it is very essential to ensure project happens within that budget. So project cost is estimated initially, then that estimated cost will be checked in terms of is the assumptions, considerations are right or wrong, is that really so much of monetary resources are required for the project. And then after understanding the justification and obtaining the clarity, budget is, monetary resources are allocated and confirmed, approved. Then it will become a budget. That will be a cost baseline. So these estimation, allocation of budget, once it happens, that will become a base, and any deviations from that cannot happen so easily. So any deviations because of additional of scope, that can be handled through change management. But idealistic scenario, the cost should not escalate or come down. Organization can also set certain tolerances at the project level, considering various different scenarios, like scenario of risks, scenario of something which deviated from the deliverable. So to what extent it can deviate, that tolerance will also be set at the economic or monetary value perspective. That is about cost. Now quality, as we know, quality is a very important area which ensures the project is delivered in time with all the specifications defined by using all the methods, means by following all the processes, work instructions, templates, and delivering as needed, where it enables the project to monitor it easily. So basically the requirement of compliance and standardization and optimization is to ensure everyone follows the same steps, do the activity. So what quality management focus is to ensure the intended objectives of a project are achieved. Already there is a definition done in terms of various different practices or processes needs to be followed. Similarly, specification of each of the products are defined, and from that there should not be any deviation. So quality management should focus on ensuring those activities are done as defined, those deliverables are done according to the specifications what is defined. It is very important that way. So for that there is a layer of quality management, there should be a layer of quality management where auditing or control activities are initiated periodically so that any deviations can be seen easily. And remember, a project manager cannot become part of quality management. Like project manager cannot audit. Project manager should have a team or take the help of a team who can able to do. Mostly the one who is not part of the project is always better. Resources. Now, as I mentioned earlier, every project needs resources. It may be human resources, it may be technology resources, it may be any other resources which are required to do the project. So organization acquires resources, configured and then deployed. For example, in a project, you acquire a server, you configure a server, you deploy a server. Technology resource. Human resource is onboarded, recruited, project induction is given. Then at the same time, the skills and capabilities of individuals are according to the requirement of project. That needs to be ensured. And what needs to be delivered and how it has to be delivered should be clear to the particular human resource. So looking at all the aspects of resources to acquire, to build and manage, it is very important to look at the resource management. So this will help in carrying out a specific task in a project in the best possible manner. So interestingly, when I say human resource, always there is a possibility that a conflict can occur. So when I say conflict of interest maybe in terms of what the individuals has to do, conflict in terms of the preferences, in terms of solutions, what they're looking at, conflict in terms of using resources, different opinions, different preferences, various reasons conflict can come across. So it is very important to project manager to understand this dynamics of human resources and manage those conflicts. Project manager cannot shy away from handling conflicts. Project manager has to hone and resolve those conflicts in the favor of project, not in the favor of any individuals. So there are various techniques to look at resolving conflicts. So that is like compromising, problem solving, smoothing, accommodating. So whichever helps for that project scenario, for the project objectives, that needs to be applied. That technique has to be taken up. So here the resolution is not at the specific individual's preference. It is with the objective of whether projects has any impact. What kind of impact? Positive or negative? If it is negative, no, that's not the direction. The direction should be ensuring project gets that value through this conflict resolution. So project manager should own it. It's an accountability of a project manager. Then as the human resources are acquired, there are 5 stages. Team dynamics are involved. So one has to bring them, then educate them about a project. As the education on the project happens, one has to go and do the job on the floor. That needs to be observed. Means one has to manage by looking at it, and any corrections needs to be done. That needs to be guided. So it is very dynamic thing when it comes to human resources. Similarly, in technology resources, standardization, there is no ambiguity as such, but right resources with the right configurations should be acquired. That is very important. The next, stakeholders. So who can be stakeholders? Every project will have a stakeholder who are internal and external to the project. So the internal stakeholders are those who are part of the project, who are part of the organization, who are part of the customer organization, who are part of supplier organization, a computation to my business, means my organization's business. All this we can call it as a stakeholders. Now every stakeholders will have a specific interest, a power, an ability to influence. Now through their position, through their distance from the project, they will get impacted. At the same time, they will also impact the project. Similarly, they influence and they get influenced because of the project. So a project manager should identify all the stakeholders and understand this. What is the kind of stakeholder is this in terms of power, in terms of legitimacy, in terms of influence, in terms of impact? After understanding that, there should be a strategy for handling the stakeholders. How am I going to engage with these stakeholders? It is very important. And accordingly, the engagement should happen, and then stakeholder engagement should resolve in the favor of projects again. So if it is a customer should get the inputs required through review or periodic updates and the engagement required with the customer, so that customer is having up-to-date information about the project. If it is a team, continued monitoring and control and ensuring team delivers the results what is required. So focus of a stakeholder should be in such a way that your strategy should enable project to become successful and get a proper response from the stakeholder, means a supporting engagement. So next few key focus areas to mention is communication, risk, procurement, critical success factors, deliverables, and work breakdown. So this list is not exhaustive. As we deep dive into project, I think you can just keep listing the key focus areas more than this, but whatever we have indicated are the minimum which needs to be looked at. So when I say communication is basically a conversation, exchange of message which happens between two entities. Now whenever we communicate, it is necessary to understand that it has to happen with two individuals or two entities. There should be sender, there should be receiver. In the absence of receiver, if sending is happening, that communication doesn't make any sense. There should be a receiver and there should be an acknowledgement from the receiver. Now this is one of the most ignored area in many of the projects. Even the communication happens more often, more frequently. But what people face difficulty in realizing that as they communicate generally, informally, formally, they just take those for granted. Now when you identify the stakeholder, one has to understand what is the communication requirement for those stakeholders. What is that communication? Why is that communication? What is the content of that communication? How frequently we should do that interactions or communications? Intent of that particular communication. What is the expected action or response from that communication? All this needs to be very, very clear, and this can be articulated. It has to be articulated. So when it is articulated, once there is a picture in terms of what kind of communication has to happen, it is quite obvious there should not be any deviation from the agreed communications requirements. And whenever there is a need of change to the communication requirements from the stakeholders, that needs to be updated. For this, one has to have a stakeholders identified. So stakeholder management and communication are very closely linked and associated. Engagement with the stakeholder will become successful with an effective communication approaches. Next is risk. So every project which is undertaken by organization, that will have certain amount of risk which organization will evaluate. Similarly, within the project life cycle, lot of risk comes up which would have certain impact to the project. Now risk refers to, by definition, an uncertain event. It has an uncertainty, an event which is uncertain, and when it occurs, it will have an impact on the project positively or negatively. Now current scenario in everywhere the projects, what you observe closely, people tend to look at the risk which are threats, that is negative only, but they fail to recognize the risks which are opportunities, the positive risks. So another gap which we see when do the risk management is that is done in the initial phase of the project. As the project is kicked off, someone will do the risk assessment, have a list of risk identified, but unfortunately there is no categorizations for that risk, and how is that going to impact the project, that is not clear. Thirdly, risk management or list of risk are created only once. It is not done repeatedly. So risk identification and analysis and assessment of that risk has to be done throughout the life cycle of a project. Reason being, the risk which looks as an high impact when project is initiated, as the project progresses, the impact levels will vary. Maybe in the mid of the project, the impact may be very high or low. So likewise, the impacts of the risk will vary throughout the project lifecycle. It may be positive, it may be negative. So as you identify the stakeholder throughout the project lifecycle, as I said, that is also a dynamic. I cannot just have a list of stakeholders and I keep it as it is. I need to update that also regularly. Risk identification, assessment, and analysis should also be done regularly, periodically, so that one will have a clear understanding about, is that risk still valid? Is that risk is there still or not? What is the level of variations in terms of impact of the risks? So this clarity will be there so that organization or project manager can get ready to face those risks. If it is a negative risk, definitely you should have a mitigation or avoidance or acceptance, whatever the mitigation plan you have, to eliminate the negative impact of the risk when it occurs. If it is a positive risk, it's quite obvious one has to take the advantage of that. One has to enhance, exploit, share a positive risk so that organization is benefited. Further, procurement. So whenever a project is initiated, whenever a project is taken up, the organization who is doing the project cannot create everything, cannot develop everything in that project life cycle. So organization would take a decision, make a decision stating that some of the deliverables we make ourselves, some of the products we make ourselves, some of the products we purchase, some of the services we purchase. So to purchase, that has to happen from a specific supplier. You cannot go with every supplier. You should evaluate the suppliers, qualify the suppliers, and then select, onboard the supplier, and then get the services or products supplied by that particular supplier. So while doing this, one has to understand what type of contracting they need to enter with. So three types of contracts we speak basically. One is about cost plus contract, where cost is fully known to the project manager and to the organization. So apart from known cost, a fee will be paid to the supplier. Another one is fixed price, where project manager or the organization who is awarding that contract to a supplier will not know what is the cost. Instead, it is a fixed price. But important here is the scope of work needs to be clearly articulated and defined. Another type of contracting can be time and material, where the billing will happen based on the amount of time one is spent on that particular hire a resource or onboard a resource on a time and material basis, and what is that effort that resource has been put. Based on that, billing will happen. So three types of contracts depending on the different scenarios of the project will be signed with the contractor. However, before doing that, it is very essential to identify those suppliers, sign off with them, and monitor and manage them. So if deliverables are not there, it is very essential to look at the termination. One has to terminate. Otherwise, one has to ensure, instead of terminating, should be able to put some effort to educate them also, so that they come up to the mark, so project is benefited. So depending on what needs to be done, that call has to be taken on a regular basis. Then critical success factor. So for every project, there should be an articulation of critical success factor. So based on that, one can confirm, yes, project has achieved its objectives or project has not achieved its objectives. So critical success factor should be supported through the metrics, key performance indicators. So key performance indicators provide those metrics to say critical success factor is achieved. For example, if I want to become successful in an exam, critical success factor is scoring or passing the examination. Or let me say, to pass the examination, key performance indicator is scoring 60% and above. So critical success factor for me to get promoted is to pass in this particular exam. So to pass in this exam, minimum I should score is 60%. That is KPI. Passing in the exam, that is critical success factor. So how will I measure that success factor is KPI. So every project which it produces a specific product or services by using a specific resources, and each of these, the resources, the processes, the templates, the deliverables, all these needs to be measured on a continual basis. So there are critical success factors defined, and those are measured by defining KPIs to that critical success factors. So basically, critical success factor provides the insight towards what needs to be measured, and when you measure, what should be the focus. And to achieve those critical success factors, the indicator is key performance indicators. When you measure, yes, the moment you achieve that, your CSF is achieved. Next, deliverables. So deliverables are those which comes as an output of the project, right? It may be a product, it may be a service, it may be a result. So this refers to the output within the scope of a project. So there can be one or more deliverables within a single project. So these deliverables may be the items that are to be sent externally to a customer or a stakeholder. So every deliverable will have a defined scope. will have a defined specification. So those deliverables has to be measured, tested, and one has to confirm, yes, this deliverable is performing as we are intended to have the performance. Accordingly, the decision will happen. Should we accept this particular deliverable or not? If there is any deviation, that has to go back for correction. So that's the reason we have monitoring and control. All the control processes like control quality focused on the product state, whether it has achieved that results or not. Is that functional as needed or not? One has to ensure these deliverables has all those features and functionalities. Only then that can be handed over to the respective stakeholder, customer or operation, whoever the stakeholder it is. Next is work breakdown structure. So when we say work breakdown structure, when I look at a specific piece of product or services and have a bigger picture, I cannot even visualize the various different components, various different actions involved in achieving that bigger deliverable. So if I say a car, so I can think of a body external, I can think of a mirror on that body, I can think of a glass in the front, side as well as the back side, and also I can think of interiors like seat, then accelerator, steering, dashboard. All this I can visualize. But since I'm not a technology expert relating to car, can I visualize all those parts which are working inside for car to move, like engine, the battery assembly? I don't know what to say further. So all these can be visualized by an expert. So every product or services should be broken down into multiple pieces. I'm not saying go and break that product. I'm saying that product will have multiple components which are involved. Those needs to be segregated. For example, if I say cars exteriors, cars interior. So cars exteriors, external items you can see, whatever you visualize, body structure, mirror assembly, headlights, then tires. So likewise, whatever I can visualize, I will make it as a line items under the exterior. So under, for example, under a mirror I can speak about mirror glass, mirror cap, mirror pedestal, and mirror assembly where it moves, where you can move the mirror. So these are the various components involved in a mirror. So I need to ensure by breaking down the product into multiple levels, by decomposing it to multiple levels, I can able to visualize the product very clearly. What is there in detail. So once I have the details, I will articulate those. What is that particular work breakdown element is, product breakdown element is. Then I will look at what skills and capabilities required for that product and I will assign the resources accordingly. So once activities, resources, everything is assigned, automatically this will become a work breakdown structure. Further, after creating a work breakdown structure, one will go and sequence the activity, look at sequencing will happen based on in what priority deliverable should happen, what order deliverable should happen. Then once the sequencing is done, it will be checked to see whether anything can be optimized. Anything can be done in such a way that smooth flow of the project can happen. There is no dependencies which will make project to delay. Like as the flow happens smoothly, so you would find the various techniques like critical path method, network diagramming, critical chain method. So all these are used. The floats of an activities are checked. Then leads and lags of the activities, the relationship between the activities. So accordingly, full visualization in terms of how the project will flow and how in what order the deliverables are happening can be easily visualized. So that is the reason first activity is to do the product breakdown, which would result in work breakdown structure. So those are the points till now whatever I mentioned are the basic understanding one should have about a project and project management. So as you deep dive into various best practices like PMP by PMI, Prince 2 by Axelos, Scrum Master, Agile Scrum Master. Similarly, you have Certified Scrum Master. So many agile practices. So when you look at any of the best practices, that will tell you clearly articulate what should be the practice for you to adopt and adapt that practices so that your project can become successful. So any of those approach you touch upon, all those refers to these basic things. In the absence of these basic things, none of those best practices discusses the project management. Now, typically in the industry, there are a lot of job roles to the project management, which we have seen. So based on that, this information is captured here on various job roles in a project management. So some of them are like project manager, senior project manager, project lead, resource manager, PMO, that is project management office analyst, steering committee member. So not necessarily all the project management roles are limited to this. So these are the roles which commonly you see and we are trying to capture that to give the insight, right? When I say project manager, the project manager is the owner. One has to take an accountability for the project, right? So project managers takes the project according to the plan and plays a lead role in all the steps of the project management, right? So responsibilities would be managing, reviewing, and prioritizing the task wherever necessary, looking after risk management, stakeholder management, and project communication management. Some of the salary what we found while we were doing the survey, the success ratio of a project depends majorly on the project manager. So the demand for project managers is rapidly increasing in the market. So accordingly, 75,474 per year, that is the USD. In INR, it is 1500,000. So this is what the salary on an approximation what was found. Next role, we look at senior project manager, where senior project manager is the head of the overall project management plan. The role demands in-depth knowledge of all the project aspects on the specifics of the project. The responsibilities would be planning and coordinating complex projects, visiting project sites to check progress and handle complex issues. So salary looks like $104,000 per year. Year 2092,000 INR per year. So the role of senior project manager is one of the highest paying roles in the industry as we have seen, having several allowances and bonuses because of the criticality involved in that project and the accountability level of that particular individuals in the organization. Next role, project lead. So project leads are the one who leads the people throughout the project and provide them with all the information required throughout. So responsibilities involve motivating the team beneath taking care of their needs and paying attention to what they feel, ordering or controlling the project team since the project lead has more freedom than the project manager. Salary, project lead makes sure that project gives the best possible outcome and is hence the demand for the project lead in a company never reduces. So in USD, 82,000 per year, whereas in INR it is 1,269,000 per year. Next role we can look at on resource manager. So resource manager is the human resource needed to make the project success, right? So one has to manage those resources. Responsibility involved assigning the right people to the right projects at the right time, managing employees currently, and determining hiring needs depending on the project's requirements. So salary would be around 64,000 USD, which comes around 966,794 in INR. Project Management Office Analyst. For this role, the Project Management Office Analyst works with PMO, means Project Management Office, and does not look at the project or manage the project directly. Instead, does most of the data driven work which required for a project to have or project to get supported by that, so that project managers will have better insight. Analyzing and interpreting the data concerning the project, figuring out the future risks to the project, finding new ways to advance the idea of the project management. So salary would be 106,253 per year in USD, whereas 449,337 in INR per year. So steering committee member. So the steering committee members are the members who do not work on the project themselves. They are there to help the project manager, like providing inputs during the development of a project, advising on the budget and evaluating the project strategies, taking regular feedbacks from the project managers and asking necessary questions. So salary would be around $68,497 per year. So those were the various roles, and that list is not an exhaustive list. Various different roles we come across, but these are the basic roles which is seen in the industry. These roles are being recruited. Now there are various project management certifications which are offered, as I mentioned earlier. So those certifications are PMP, that is Project Management Professional from PMI, Agile Certified Practitioner, that is PMI-ACP, again from PMI, then Certified Associate in Project Management. So difference between CAPM and PMP is like CAPM would act as a basic level of certification for those who does not have a sufficient project experience, project management experience, whereas PMP is for those who has some project management experience. Similarly, PMI-ACP is the one who is aspiring to look at agility in project management, and they can go for it. Certified Scrum Master, yes, it is a Scrum Master certificate which will explain the role of a Scrum Master in detail. Similarly, Prince 2, a certification from Axelos, which also speak about all the aspects of the project what we discussed and provides the framework for project management. Axelos also provides Prince 2 certification in Agile also, Agile Prince 2 certification. So we will look at each one of this, certain details which are required for us to know. So project management professional, as I mentioned, is most acknowledged and value the certificate value what it carries, which has resulted to the certified professionals in landing up in highest paid jobs in the world. So certified managers gets 20% more salary than the average salary. So to take up an examination, one has to go through the formal training of 35 hours. That is one of the prerequisites, and there should be some experience of 4500 hours of project managing project by leading various activities of a project. And once the person becomes eligible with that prerequisites, person will become register in the PMI's website, becomes member, and then go for examination. So examination fee for PMP would be $405 for the members who are registered with PMI, and for those who are not registered as a member with PMI, it is $555. The duration of the examination is 4 hours, and the number of questions will be 200, which are multiple choice questions. So each question carries 1 marks. There is no negative scoring. Now prerequisites, one has to have 4,500 hours directing and leading the projects. That experience has to be filled in while filling the application. If a person is a bachelor degree holder, and along with that 35 contact hours of PM education. Now prerequisites for the one who is not a graduate, who may be high school or diploma, is 7,500 hours of directing and leading projects, 35 hours of PM education. So those are the prerequisites before one will go and appear for examination. So once an individual passes PMP examination, that certificate is valid for 3 years. So now after 3 years, if the person aspires to keep the certificate continued, they need to produce 60 PDUs, professional development units, which has to be acquired during those 3 years. How to acquire? One has to go through additional learning, one has to contribute towards project management knowledge base. So those needs to be evidenced, and then renewal fee has to be paid and certificate has to be renewed. Then Agile Certified Practitioner, as we saw for PMP, here Agile Certified Practitioner demonstrates that one has relevant experience and education to handle and lead Agile projects. The organization has started shifting towards Agile, as we know in today's industry, which makes this certification fast growing in the world. So examination fee would be $435 for PMI members, $495 for non-PMI members. Duration is 3 hours and multiple choice questions, 120 questions. Prerequisites is 2000 hours project management experience with 1500 hours agile experience and 21 contact hours of agile practices. So maintenance 30 PDOs are required for every 3 years, and after paying the renewal fee, that can be renewed. Now certified associate in project management. So here this is an entry level certificate of PMI, especially for those people who has less project experience. It intends to demonstrate fundamental knowledge, terminologies and processes of effective project management. So examination fee would be $225 for PMI members, whereas $300 for non-members of PMI. So duration of examination is 3 hours, and examination will have 150 multiple choice questions. So prerequisites, someone who has secondary diploma with 23 contact hours of PM education is enough. There is no experience of doing the project is required, as we saw in PMP. So maintenance is again 3 years. Someone who need to continue the certification has to retake the examination every 3 years. Next, certified Scrum Master. So certified Scrum Master is an entry-level certification that helps the professionals to begin as the Scrum practitioners. It is one of the most sought after certifications, as after this one can get the designation of certified Scrum Master, which is offered by Scrum Alliance. So examination fee, which will change time to time, which is not revealed. So one has to approach the training organization where they will get trained on certified Scrum Master. So duration of examination is 60 minutes, and pattern would be 16 hours, 2 days of training and 50 multiple choice questions after that particular 2 days of training. Then prerequisite is none for maintaining these credentials. So one has to ensure it has renewed every 2 years. Then projects in controlled environment, that is Prince2. So Prince2 is a method which is effective mostly from the base of UK. All the organizations who are from UK region prefers to have Prince2 certification, and it is as popular as any other project management certifications like PMP. So examination fee would vary from $900 to $1,000 depending on where exactly you're taking the examination, and certification will happen at 2 levels. One is at foundation level and other one is practitioner. So in foundation, it is 60 questions, multiple choice, and in practitioner, it is 68 questions. Now, 60 questions or 68 questions, each carries 1 marks for correct answer. Any wrong answer, there will not be any negative scoring. One has to score 55% to clear the examination. So prerequisites for Prince2 Foundation is none, whereas Prince2 Foundation is a prerequisite for Prince2 Practitioner examination. So to maintain the certificate, one has to achieve 20 CPDs every year, continued professional development. So with this, we conclude the understanding about what is project management, what is project, what are the various key focus areas of the project, and various different certifications offered and there in the industry for understanding the best practice of project management, various different roles what we went through. So for more, you need to visit www.simplelearn.com, and I wish all the success for your project management practices journey. Keep learning, keep growing. All the best. Thank you.
Hi there, if you like this video, subscribe to the Simply Learn YouTube channel and click here to watch similar videos. To nerd up and get certified, click here.